It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child, in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the nighttide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. Gather round and listen to this speaker. You've come to the Grand Guignol Children's Theater. Is it true? It is not true. And if it were, it wouldn't do for people such as yours and you, who pretty nearly all day long are doing something rather wrong. Because if things were really so, you would have perished long ago. Now, heed my words within this rhyme. Is everyone ready for a bloody good time? Robert flew away with the weather. Such a sad ending was avoidable altogether. When the rain comes tumbling down in the country or the town, all the good little girls and boys stay at home and mind their toys. Robert thought, no, when it pours, it is better out of doors. What a wind! Oh, how it whistles! Through the trees and through the thistles. It has caught his red umbrella. Now look at him, silly fellow. Up he flies, to the skies. No one heard his screams and cries. No one ever yet could tell where he stopped or where he fell. Only this one thing is plain. Bob was never seen again. Augustus was too picky. Death by starvation is very tricky. Augustus was a chubby lad. Fat, ruddy cheeks Augustus had. He ate and drank as he was told, and never let his soup get cold. But one day, one cold winter's day, he screamed out, "Take the soup away! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." Next day, now look, the puppet shows how lank and lean Augustus grows. Yet though he feels so weak and ill, the naughty fellow cries out still, "Not any soup for me, I say! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." The third day comes, oh, what a sin, to make himself so pale and thin. Yet when the soup is put on the table, he screams as loud as he is able. "Not any soup for me, I say! Oh, take the nasty soup away! I won't have any soup today." Look at him, now the fourth day's come. He scarcely weighs a sugar plum. He's like a little bit of thread. And on the fifth day, he was dead. To be the center of attention was Rose's wish. Now the only attention she gets is from a fish. There was a young lady named Rose, who fainted whenever she chose. She fainted one day while playing croquet, but was quickly revived with a hose. It made her feel special when everyone doted. My goodness, her friends were oh so devoted. She fainted at school. She fainted in the park. She fainted in the day. And when it was dark. She kept on fainting, fainting, fainting. Her friends suspected she was fainting. Their sympathies were waning. In a moment of frustration, they resorted to hydration. Growing tired of her clowning, they sentenced her to a drowning. Little Harriet engulfed in flame. Fire, friends, is not a game. It almost makes me cry to tell what foolish Harriet befell. Everyone went out one day and left her all alone at play. Now, on the table close at hand, a box of matches chanced to stand. "I'm not allowed. Oh, what a pity. For when they burn, it is so pretty." Harriet would not take advice. She lit a match. It was so nice. It crackled so, it burned so clear. Exactly like the puppet here. She jumped for joy and ran about, and was too pleased to put it out. And see, oh, what a dreadful thing. The fire has caught on her apron string. Her apron burns, her arms, her hair. She burns all over, everywhere. So she was burnt with all her clothes, and arms, and hands, and eyes, and nose, till she had nothing more to lose, except her little scarlet shoes. And nothing else but these was found among her ashes on the ground. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished for morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then where thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched, and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven now," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore? Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by a reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock in store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, to the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and busted door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking, fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press. Ah, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beat from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. But tomorrow I die, and today I will unburthen my soul. From my infancy, I was especially fond of animals, and was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, my wife lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. And a cat. A remarkably large and beautiful animal, entirely black and sagacious to an astonishing degree. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me wherever I went about the house. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temperament and character experienced a radical alteration for the worse. My disease grew upon me, for what disease is like alcohol? And at length even Pluto began to experience the effects of my ill temper. One night, in his fright at my violence, he inflicted a slight wound upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. My original soul seemed at once to take its flight from my body. I took from my waistcoat pocket a penknife, opened it, and deliberately cut one of its eyes from the socket. When reason returned with the morning, I experienced a sentiment half of horror, half of remorse for the crime of which I had been guilty. But I again plunged into excess, and soon drowned in wine all memory of the deed. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered. He went about the house as usual, but, as might be expected, fled in extreme terror at my approach. I had so much of my old heart left as to be at first grieved by this, but this feeling soon gave place to irritation, and then perverseness. One morning, in cold blood, I slipped a noose about its neck and hung it to the limb of a tree. Hung it with tears streaming from my eyes, and with the bitterest remorse at my heart. Hung it because I knew that it had loved me, and because I felt it had given me no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in doing so, I was committing a sin, a deadly sin that would so jeopardize my immortal soul as to place it, if such a thing were possible, even beyond the reach of the infinite mercy of the most merciful and most terrible God. For months I could not rid myself of the memory of the cat. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal, and to look about me among the vile haunts which I now habitually frequented, for with which to supply its place. One night as I sat half stupefied, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object. It was a black cat. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, purred loudly, rubbed against my hand, and appeared delighted with my notice. When I prepared to go home, the animal evinced a disposition to accompany me. I permitted it to do so. I soon found a dislike to it arising within me. By slow degrees, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into the bitterness of hatred, and gradually, very gradually, I came to look upon it with unutterable loathing. What added, no doubt, to my hatred of the beast was the discovery that, like Pluto, it also had been deprived of one of its eyes. This circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife. With my aversion to this cat, however, its partiality for myself seemed to increase. Whenever I sat, it would crouch beneath my chair, or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome caresses. At such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from doing so by absolute dread of the beast. Alas, neither by day nor by night knew I the blessing of rest anymore. I started hourly from dreams of unutterable fear to find the hot breath of the thing upon my face, and its vast weight an incarnate nightmare that I had no power to shake off. Beneath the pressure of torments such as these, the feeble remnant of the good within me succumbed. Evil thoughts became my sole intimates, the darkest and most evil of thoughts. One day, my wife accompanied me into the cellar. The cat followed me down the steep stairs, and, nearly throwing me headlong, exasperated me to madness. Uplifting an axe, I aimed a blow at the animal, but this blow was arrested by the hand of my wife. Goaded by the interference into a rage more than demoniacal, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot, without a groan. This hideous murder accomplished, I set myself forthwith to the task of concealing the body. I determined to wall it up in the cellar. When I had finished, I felt satisfied that all was right. The wall did not present the slightest appearance of having been disturbed. My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of so much wretchedness, but it appeared that the crafty animal had been alarmed at the violence of my previous anger. It is impossible to describe the blissful sense of relief which the absence of the detested creature occasioned in my bosom. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, a party of police came, very unexpectedly, into the house and proceeded to make rigorous investigation of the premises. They descended into the cellar. I quivered not a muscle. By the by, gentlemen, this is a very well-constructed house. These walls are solidly put together. And here, through the mere frenzy of bravado, I rapped heavily upon that very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the corpse of the wife of my bosom. But may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the arch-fiend. No sooner had the reverberation of my blows sunk into silence than I was answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry, at first muffled and broken, like the sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into one long, loud, and continuous scream, utterly anomalous and inhuman. A howl, a wailing shriek, half of horror and half of triumph, such as might have arisen only out of hell, conjointly from the throats of the damned in their agony, and of the demons that exult in the damnation. For one instant, the party remained motionless, through extremity of terror and of awe. In the next, a dozen stout arms were toiling at the wall. It fell bodily. The corpse, already greatly decayed and clotted with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the spectators. Upon its head, with red extended mouth and solitary eye of fire, sat the hideous beast whose craft had seduced me into murder, and whose informing voice had consigned me to the hangman. I had walled the monster up within the tomb.
True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am, but why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me an insult. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded. Every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient, I put in a dark lantern, and then my head. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no! It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Death, in approaching the old man, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and it was the mournful influence of his unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he never saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, I opened a very, very little crevice in the lantern, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it, all of dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. And now, have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say louder every moment, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done, but for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there. There was no pulsation. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and the arms, and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. When I had made an end of these labors, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I led them at length to his chamber. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease, but ere long my head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. Still they sat, and still they chatted. The ringing became more distinct, until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale. What could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? The noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. Anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt I must scream or die, and now, again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains, I shrieked! Dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the planks! Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart! Really was ever so dumb to lose his life over a suck of his thumb. One day, Mama said, "Conrad, dear, I must go out and leave you here. But mind now, Conrad, what I say. Don't suck your thumb while I'm away. The great tall tailor always comes to little boys that suck their thumbs. And here they dream what he's about. He takes his great sharp scissors out and cuts their thumbs clean off. And then, you know, they never grow again." Mama had scarcely turned her back. The thumb was in. Alack, alack! The door opened. In he ran, the great, long, red-legged scissor man. "Oh, children, see, the tailor's come," and caught out little suck-a-thumb. Snip, snap, snip, the scissors go, and Conrad cries out, "Oh, oh, oh!" Snip, snap, snip, they go so fast that both his thumbs are off at last. Mama comes home. There Conrad lies, and looks quite sad, covered in blood and flies. "Ah," said Mama, "I knew he'd come to naughty little suck-a-thumb." Pierre didn't care if his fate was grim, so a lion tore him limb from limb. There once was a boy named Pierre, who only said, "I don't care." His parents loathed his laissez-faire, so they didn't take him anywhere. Alone as the night began to fall, a hungry lion did pay a call. He looked Pierre right in the eye and asked him if he'd like to die. Pierre said, "I don't care." "I can eat you, don't you see?" "I don't care." "And you will be inside of me." "I don't care." "Then you will never have to bother with a mother and a father." "I don't care." "Is that all you have to say? Then I'll eat you if I may." "I don't care." So the lion ate Pierre. Arriving home at 6 o'clock, his parents had a dreadful shock. They found the lion sick in bed and cried, "Pierre is surely dead." They pulled the lion by the hair. They hit him with the folding chair. His mother asked, "Where is Pierre?" The lion answered, "I don't care." Bill Jr. rode his last ride. His head was lifted from his hide. The carnival comes to town every year. It brings the children fun and cheer. Well, this year there was a special new ride. "Yay, the mixer!" all the children cried. The man warned, "Keep your head and arms inside the mixer until the ride subsides." The children listened and rode and spun. It looked like an awful lot of fun. But Bill Jr., he was a daredevil, just like his father. He leaned out the mixer. Oh, what a bother. Cried, "Hey, everybody, look at me, look at me." Pow! Aghast. What happened was a shock to see. Poor Bill Jr. was decapitated in the very life from existence. His skull was skeleton torn apart. They found his head by the snow cone cart. Here lies a puppet troupe. From this problem they won't recoup. There once were 3 phony preachers that touted themselves as great teachers, when in fact they were filled with sin. To be horrible only made them grin. They treated us poorly for many years, and made children cry, oh, the flow of their tears. So tonight, for the show, when we poured out their gin, we added something special, a little poison. As they suffer and die, you might ask yourself, why? Well, practice what you preach, or lo, someone might spike your OJ with Drano.